Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Ji Xiaojun.
Hello from Beijing, I'm Louisa Lee.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Today we're going to be talking about the apps, but not just any apps.
Okay.
We're talking about Chinese apps going global.
Chinese apps. Well, that's interesting because basically China has now become the leading market of all these apps, either developed by Chinese developers, or sometimes we see a lot of overseas.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it used to be, people used to think of China as, you know, we're always copying from the West. You know, copying all these. It's called,
You're saying that.
Yeah, copy to China.
I'm not.
But now it seems like this copy to China era is ending, is it? That is the question.
I don't know. I better just leave it for the audience to judge,
Yes.
make that call. But the thing is, you know, we're seeing tremendous development in terms of software, in terms of all these mobile applications. But at the same time, we're seeing a new trend, a new opportunity for Chinese business people, for all these developers. They're not only having their business done in China, they're also moving overseas, moving to other countries. It's almost like, hey, we're coming.
Yeah, like you said, they're not only focusing on the China market. They're thinking outside the box, thinking maybe going beyond just China.
Any app you can think of?
You know, I have a lot of...
WeChat. What about WeChat?
WeChat is a good one, but
are only overseas Chinese, are only Chinese using WeChat as well?
That is the thing, though. I think WeChat is more catered to the Chinese market because in the West, they already have dominant chat apps already. So I feel like for an app to actually work abroad, it needs to be something entirely different, something they don't have in the West.
I don't know.
That's this is my personal opinion.
But, you know, that is why we're talking to professionals only. And today, in the studio, we're now joined by three professionals. We have Professor Shen Qiaowei from Peking University. And your area is?
Marketing.
In marketing. And we have Vincent. And you're from?
From Cheetah Mobile.
Okay. And you have business run in operation in China and also in other markets too?
Right. We produce a lot of mobile internet apps. And right now we have around 600 million users globally.
600 million active users?
Of course, right.
And registered ones would be?
Well, one of the most famous ones is called Clean Master, which is a junk file cleaning utility product.
Heard about it.
Yeah,
heard about it.
Very practical app to have.
But I'm not using it yet. And we have Dong.
I'm Dong, and I'm from 10 Fund, and we do investment in China and also other overseas markets. So
you're an investor?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But actually, your company also does investment now, these days.
Right, we do. I think all the major companies has its own investing arm. Because we want to catch up what's the latest trend in the industry. So you cannot just do your own business. You have to look around and see what's going on.
Now, just now, when we first started, we're seeing this new trend that Chinese companies are now going abroad. Professor, are you also witnessing this trend too?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? Like before, maybe we only see like foreign apps coming to China, but now it's amazing to see many Chinese apps. Actually, I would like to hear the stories. I chat with the two friends here, but I'm very amazed by their stories.
It's almost like a counterattack. It's our turn.
Right.
So, is it true that we're now going overseas?
Of course, yes, we are. In a major way, actually. Yeah, for example, we have right now not only just utility products, also casual games, also a lot of other so-called content products such as live streaming product. We're going overseas as well. And not just us, Cheetah Mobile. There's many other Chinese companies are going overseas as well.
Okay.
Actually.
Why now, though? Because, you know, when we think about all these apps, when I think about the Google of China would be Baidu, the Yelp of China would be 大众点评.
So Chinese version
Chinese version of Western apps. But why are we now creating our own apps?
I think, you know, many Chinese companies have done very well in the last 10 years in China. We are taking a leading position now, especially on the application layer. So I think it's a time. Why not?
So you're saying China is now in the leading position in technology and innovation?
Application.
In application?
Yeah, I mean, in the infrastructure IT innovation, I think the U.S. is still leading the market globally. So
why is that? Why all of a sudden it seems all of a sudden that China is in the leading position in application?
I think that China has so much population. We have a huge market, and Chinese people are very smart. So we innovate in different ways about people's ways to use apps in their lives.
You mentioned the market is huge here in China. Then why not just focus here in China? Why do you want to go abroad? I mean, if you can reach out, if everyone can download your app here in China, you could
it's
be
only
making
600 million. We have 1.4 billion.
So why not just focus on the Chinese market?
Actually, it's not because we want to go overseas. We are forced to go overseas at the time. By all the other competitors.
By competition?
By the competition, yes. See, in around 2012, Cheetah Mobile was doing internet security service in China, but it was facing a major competitor, which is Qihoo 360.
It's also another Chinese company.
Another Chinese company doing similar products and services. Also, the other tech giant, Tencent, was about doing the similar thing. So at that time, there's really no way for us to outrun the competition. And then going overseas seems to be a feasible way to do that.
Actually, in terms of mobile economy, China is leading the way. For example, the mobile payment, the penetration rate in China is much higher than many countries. Actually, than most countries, we are the #1 in terms of penetration rate.
Yes. So a cashless society, basically.
That's right.
We can live on a mobile phone.
Exactly, exactly. And I think some of the apps, the mobile apps we're using now, maybe we don't find same thing abroad. So I think that create opportunities for companies to actually bring the Chinese product to the overseas market.
But when you think of bringing apps abroad, that means you have to think of new strategies to target a different market. I mean, you're familiar with the Chinese market, but how about when you take this app abroad, do you have to cater to that particular market? Do you have to tweak the apps?
There's a certain evolution of the type of apps we brought to the overseas market. The first one is the utility apps. Utility apps doesn't need expertise on local culture or market.
Utility apps meaning?
Utility apps meaning you do certain things to improve your efficiency, to make the phone, for example, run much faster and more efficient.
Okay.
So for using Clean Master as an example, right? You do junk file cleaning. You don't have to know what people likes in certain market, right? You only need to know how this Android operating system works, how to delete that, how to identify and delete that particular junk files. A lot of other developers for this type of product, they will have a small, let's say 2 or 3 people team doing this in a garage. But we can do this in a much bigger scale. We invest 200 or 300 software engineers to identify all the apps in the markets and identify all the potential junk files each app will produce and then remove them. No other people can do that better than us.
Mostly these engineers, as IT people, are they mainly from China? I mean, I read in an article that 400,000 people from overseas, from China, they come back to China to work in China. Is this one of the contributing factors in the growth of IT people here in China?
Definitely. I think it's one of the main, main reasons that Chinese IT companies grew so fast in the past years. Because, many experienced IT people back from the Europe or the US, and they know how to develop a tool, how to make the infrastructure more strong to afford the traffic. So I think it helps.
How is that contributing to the fact that Chinese companies are now going overseas?
Because of Chinese market is relatively isolated market because, because of national policy.
Language? Okay.
No, national policy, for example, Facebook cannot get in, right? Google cannot easily get in. So we have a somehow unique ecosystem here. And because of all the innovation has been really released, so a lot of creativities, a lot of new ideas can be tested in this market without interference from the outside environment. So with the huge market, huge population here, with all the talent pools, we can test an idea very quickly. And if it's successful, and then there will be company to try to bring it to the overseas market and try to go there.
When we say overseas, it's a very much general term. But where exactly overseas? Which market are we now talking about?
Yeah, actually, we have invested in two companies. One is started from the U.S., and another one is now doing business in India. The first one, they do, cross-border carriers to transport goods from the U.S. to China and then China to U.S. And the business model is like one Chinese company called Shansong,
It's logistics, it's delivery.
Yes.
Fast delivery in 1 hour.
For the Indian part, actually this company, the founder of the company has competed with Qunar in China for 6 or more years, but they took different strategies, so they have a different end. And now the OTA industry in China, like Ctrip, like
OTA.
Qunar,
OTA.
online travel agency industry. So they are taking a leading position. They occupy much, I think, 67% of the market in China. So startups don't have opportunities in China now, so they have to go abroad.
But when you go to India, don't they have their own apps? Aren't you competing with the local apps? And they have, advantages because they understand their local market?
Same language, and they're pretty strong in software.
Yeah, there are actually. There are two leading companies in India doing the same business, and they go public even 15 years ago, like Ctrip in China at the same time. But the Chinese market, the competition is more fierce, and we have much more experience on operation. We have more strong IT infrastructure, and we know the ways how to acquire new customers than they do. So we can compete, and we can overpass them, I think.
But if you talk about these advantages, that can apply to all other different markets, not only just India. You may just do the same thing in as many countries as you want.
Yeah, of course, but we took India as a start because, India has so much population as
Huge
China.
population too.
Yeah, and the size of the country is very large.
And Vincent, where to? Which markets you're targeting?
Well, we are talking about really global markets. For us,
even more ambitious.
Yes, because for certain products, such as utility products, basically there's no boundary, right? North America and Europe is about 20 to 30% of our total user base. But also we have a large user population in India, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and other markets. And for our other content-related products, such as LiveMe, which is a live broadcasting, live streaming products, initially we focus on the U.S. market because because U.S. is the place that if you can occupy that market or doing well in that market, and that will naturally go over to other markets. So interestingly, we have a pocket of users in the U.S., and then we'll find some user base will pop up in certain unlike places such as Saudi Arabia, right? We never thought people there will be our users, but somehow we found many users start to use our products.
Professor, I mean, if you're talking about these new markets, is there a perfect overseas market, or what kind of traits they should be looking at if they're thinking of a new market?
I don't think there's like perfect market, but definitely we can look for a few factors, right? First of all, there should be a met consumer need, which means that the local people want something, but currently they can't find very good offerings. That create opportunity for entry. And second, maybe we can look for the competition, right? Like how many other companies, they are aiming at the same target group, the same market. And maybe we can find a place or industry or sector that there's not many competitors. And the last thing I think, actually I have questions for these two gentlemen, like when they have the apps overseas, like they must find their own differentiation points, right? Like the app in India, there is already incumbent, and you're the newcomer. But how can you convince the local consumers that you should switch to my app? It means that you need to offer something better than the existing offerings. That's your differentiation, right?
Of course. In India, now the mobile phones that that's most used in India are Chinese brands, like Xiaomi, like Oppo, like Vivo.
That helps with the downloads as well.
Right. We can cooperate with these Chinese brands to go abroad together. We can do that. That's really a leading advantage that the competitors cannot have.
In the very beginning, you mentioned different types of apps, utility apps or other types of apps. So when we think of this new strategy going overseas, what kind of apps that you have in mind? I mean, what kind of apps are the ones that you're thinking of?
Basically, we kind of have three categories. One is the utility apps, which is the first one that went overseas. And then it was followed by casual games or other type of games, excuse me. Game is it's a slightly different, right? You do need certain cultural elements in the games. So the first category of games when overseas is more of an action role-play game. And then there will be strategy games. Strategy game, you have to plotting, right? Thinking all of strategies.
Three Kingdoms.
Three Kingdoms, yeah. Kind of like that, yes. And then I think recently will be like more of music and dance games. Musically is a good example. It's very popular among teenagers in the US. I think it has around 20 million monthly active users to that level. This is developed by a small team in Shanghai. People initially they were trying this app. They find some kids are playing lip sync to all the music, so they say, well, they want to develop an app for that. They put it on Google Play and Facebook App Store, and then suddenly they noticed that the small pocket of users in Texas, in the U.S., start to use our games. A lot of people try to download our games, and then it's not intended, right? It's almost by random. They have attracted a group of users, and then they find out that the reason was that in Texas there's a local station, broadcast station. There's a competition for kids to do lip syncing performance. And then that's a perfect tool for them to practice. That's how the game gets started.
It's almost like we're now itching into a new territory. It's more about the secrets, open or not open. It's more about how we actually do it. So let's take a break first, and then when we come back, we'll continue our discussion, and we'll encourage them to reveal more secrets. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the studio, and our talks continues about Chinese apps that are blazing the trail.
Secret time.
Yes.
Secret time. Now, for this segment, we're going to talk about how actually it is done. So we mentioned a little bit what types of apps we now have in our mind. So what exactly are games are a huge type.
Right.
Your Happy Easy Go, that's online travel agency.
Yeah, provide tickets for the customers to book.
Okay, and also plus utilities. So pretty much it covers everything.
Well, there are also another type, which is a news aggregate service. There's a Chinese company called Toutiao. A lot of people know that, right? Its English name is called ByteDance. It has a similar product in the U.S. to Toutiao we have here, which is called Topbus. Also, there's another company called News Republic, which is actually the French company we acquired in 2016. And, well, we just disposed it to Toutiao last year. And it does similar thing for news aggregate. Well, what exactly it does is it provides personalized content that will deliver to your phone. So traditionally, right, we acquire news articles by search, right? We go through different categories. Initially, like Yahoo model, right? You put all the things in different category. And then we have Google, we search all the contacts. And then for Facebook, as a third generation we call it, you see what your friends see. But now the Total type
They
of...
see what you see.
Well, the articles in the news will find you, right?
They see what you
Right,
see.
exactly.
They're using the same strategy as when you shop online and the similar stuff that you like will
They
pop up.
collect all your footprints.
It's kind of the same concept in a way, but
It's kind of scary but convenient.
It is convenient, yes.
So what I'm saying is, how do you do it? Do you develop a new app for a new market? Do you kind of implant the app that you have in this market and do it basically the same thing in the different market? Do you acquire a new company? How do you do it?
I think it depends on what apps and what markets do you want to get in. Like the Happy They Go one. Actually, we did a new app for the Indian market because, you know, the interface and the user experience, the habits are different from China. And, you know, the average age of Indian users and Indian people is lower than Chinese. They are 27, and we are 36 already.
The average age of Chinese users?
Yeah.
So they
I
have
thought
a
it's
young,
way younger than that.
No, that India is much younger than us.
so they have a younger group of people, users.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They are
You mean OTA users or general users?
general users, the population.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's quite an interesting number, right?
And I thought it was much younger population here.
Yes. So they like, you know, colorful. They like, you know, dynamics in the apps. So they are different.
So what is the strategy you take? I mean, develop a new one or use the old one?
For us, we will be more like having the proven model, proven product, and we'll bring this to the overseas market.
A mature one.
A mature one, yes.
But you're saying two different markets, which could be different.
It can be, actually. For example, in China, Total has been very successful, but in the US, which is a very different market, the users' ethnic background, cultural background, political view are very different. And the reason those products can't deliver personalized service to these users is because they are using artificial intelligence-based technology, right? The content distribution is done by the algorithm running at the back end. There's no human interaction. But because in the US market, it's so much diverse, so the recommendation engine must have much higher granularity to be precise in deliver content to a particular user. For example, if you push the wrong content to a user, the user can be offended. That's a very quick way to alienate your user. Well, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
It happens all the time.
This reminds me of the Meitu app, which kind of offended the Western users, right? Because in Meitu app, like, you know, here in Asia.
What is it? Explain this Meitu
Well,
app.
Meitu app is basically like a, you know, it's a camera app and filters, it has filters, and, you know.
Makes you more beautiful.
Yeah, it makes
More younger.
It
Yeah.
depends what you find beautiful. It makes your skin lighter, your eyes bigger, your nose smaller. But maybe that's beautiful in certain perspective, but
But you
not
like
everyone,
it.
But not everyone agrees with it. Well, you know what? I use it sometimes, but I think it doesn't even look like me anymore, and I feel it's not being, you know, I'm not being real. So
Right.
sometimes I'm reluctant to use it.
Yeah.
But in the West, people might think they call it a little racist.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's, you know, when they brought it abroad, they didn't think about the cultural aspect of it.
One app might be great for one market, but not necessarily for a different market. But at the same time, Louisa is saying it could be risky too.
Right.
So how important is this?
Yeah, I think it's very important to kind of notice the difference across markets, right? As mentioned, the consumers in different markets are different. They have different culture, different religion, they have different social values, and we have to respect them as a company, right? If you want to cater to the consumer in that area, you have to really notice these things, this difference, and the product should be tailored, you know, according to the local market.
The first reaction, it's pretty easy because we're talking about mobile technology. I mean, once it's available in the app store, then it's available worldwide for the global market. But it's never as simple as that.
Right. I think maybe for certain products it's easier. Maybe like for utility, like clean up certain, you know, things in the mobile, those like things more technology-wise, I think probably there's less customization and more standardization. But for certain products, there's more of like user interface. You're facing customer directly. Then you have to think really carefully about what the consumers look like, what they want, and then maybe there's certain barriers for us. Right?
Yeah.
We don't want to, just like the Meitu Social example, right? Offend the customers.
Right.
That's very important.
Right.
So we did promise to our viewers that we are going to encourage all of them to reveal more secrets. So let's do that. Tell me, if this is a conference room, now we're now thinking of a new market for a new app, for an app. So how exactly, step by step, that you would do it?
First, we have to develop the apps, but this kind of technology in China is very mature.
You're saying developing a new app for a new market?
Yes, yes. But the top thing is that you have to cater the apps or the products to the markets in the specific countries.
Are you going to hire local people?
Of course. Actually, happily they have 95% of the staffs from India. They are Indian people. We run the business locally, and I think in the 1 or 2 years, there should be many more India staffs in this company.
So the app is created in China, but you also work with the local people to create like customer service in India.
Actually now it has divided into 2 parts. The IT part is in Shanghai, in China, because the Chinese IT guys know how to build the app more faster, how to adjust this app much more quickly, much more rapidly than in the India parts. But the call center, the customer service, and the business itself, like you get tickets from the suppliers or the airlines. This is done in India.
So what is the longest, say, tolerant target? You would let it go for a while. If the model doesn't work in one market, you're going to kill the project.
I think it won't last than 2 months because it's really a long period.
Yeah, greedy investors.
Then move on to the next part.
Exactly. So how do you do it?
Well, using a LiveMe of the live broadcasting platform as an example. LiveMe right now is the #1 live broadcasting service in the U.S.
Okay, how did this happen?
See, that's why I'm going to explain now.
Yeah.
See, this product, this business model is already very popular in China, right? We know how it operates. All the interactions between the host and the user or fans, fan base. And then when we brought that to the U.S., of course, initially, you have to find the host and users, right? This is called like cold start.
Online celebrities.
Right? Online celebrities. So we have to start with somebody, right? And we go to the right agencies to sign up with certain online celebrities. And then some of them will bring their fans to that platform. And then we do a lot of marketing and do so-called user acquisition, right? We explain to people what this app is about. Actually, initially, not many people knows, right, in the U.S. This is a very alien concept.
It's a new thing.
It's a new thing. It's a very alien concept for the U.S. consumers. Well, they say, well, you're doing online performing, you can make money, right?
Can you share with us how do you monetize from these apps? Are they still from ads? I mean, what other ways are you monetizing it?
Real secret.
Well, everybody knows that, right? We do advertisements.
Yeah.
So for us, Cheetah Mobile has about 600 million monthly active users, and it generates around 600 million ad impressions per day, right? So because of the ad impressions, we kind of like charge a tiny amount from each ad impression.
Times 600 million.
Times 600 million, so that's a huge number.
If you come back to her story of Meitu Xiuxiu, it's not against the legal terms, it's not against the regulations, but it's only,
culture.
It's making you more beautiful, but in a way that I don't like.
Beautiful, like I said, beautiful.
Beautiful, but in a way I don't like. How do you see that? How do you comment on that, Professor?
Consumers in different regions, they are quite different. If companies, they don't understand the market, don't understand their consumers, then I think it's a huge risk to go abroad.
Are we not living in a global society now?
Yeah, to some extent, that's right. But like, think about even foreign companies, if they come to China market, they have to do a lot of localization. If they just adopt their business model and copy it here, it's doomed to fail. We see a lot of examples, like eBay, for example. They entered Chinese market quite early, more than 10 years ago, but they had to exit because they don't understand the market.
Because we have a Taobao.
Yes. Taobao actually built this after the entry of eBay, but Taobao doing a much better way because they understand Chinese consumer much better.
So let's talk about this from a different angle. So do you know of any example, if not necessarily your own company's examples of, failing to acknowledge the differences of different markets?
There's an app called UC Browser. Right? It's a mobile browser app. They were in India. I think they spent they made a huge investment there. They said they will recruit, they are going to put a huge investment to recruit local content providers to add all the content to the platform, but somehow the government itself, Indian government, doesn't like it because they think your app is somehow collecting private information that could be a national security issues, and then I think it has met a major obstacle in its development.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a break then. Let's take a happy break, and we'll come back. We'll continue our discussion about the future.
And for more information about our show, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the studio, and now we're going to be talking about the future of these apps. What kind of apps should we be eyeing?
You're thinking about any investment opportunities in the future?
I don't want to hear the secrets.
Talk to this guy. So if you're going to invest in new projects in the future, going overseas, what kind of apps you're looking at?
Of course, we are looking for some kind of business that can go abroad.
Are you still focusing the India market?
Yeah, of course, because the international markets varies from country to country. So we have one company did very well there, so we are going to do some more investments based on that company.
If you know the market and then do more with this market.
Yeah, of course. And the online travel agency, we sell air tickets on the platform. Then we're going to launch the hotel booking service next month, and then we can build the economy class hotels in India, like Ctrip did in China, also called Rujia, because because it fits the needs of Indian markets now.
You were saying, because before we started recording, we were saying China is pretty much in the leading position in application side. So if India is also in that lagging behind position of all these applications, you're basically saying you can transport all these applications that are doing well in China to India.
Not exactly.
Not all of them.
Yeah, because the Indian markets are different from China. They are 15 years ago like China. And I think when I went to India, I found that the market is not ready for e-commerce. There are two giant e-commerce companies in India already.
Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, and another one is Flipkart, recently acquired by the Walmart.
Okay.
But there are the market is still very huge. There should be more because the e-commerce industry in China, there are platforms and there are vertical products, but they have the same population, but they don't have the same apps as in China.
So not the right time yet.
I think within 3 or 5 years, the timing will become.
Would you consider acquiring other apps, say, from India, and then tweaking it and making your own app? You know how we did with Uber here, how Didi kind of just took Uber's idea and bought it out and changed it and make it their own product.
Yeah, of course, we'll think about that because accreditation is also a very good tool. Effective way to bring something down to the competition. But I think timing is everything.
Back to you. What about if you're going to make further investment?
We are very active in Silicon Valley. looking for new opportunities to see, what is the new ideas, what's the next big thing. But again, go back to our original point, what kind of Chinese app can go overseas? I think anything that's successful in China can potentially be a candidate, because there will be many people compare the successful app here in China and try to figure out whether there will be opportunity in overseas markets. I think that opportunity will always be here. And
do you have any apps in mind right now?
Well, for example, the internet finance, we forgot about, right? It's a kind of controversial area. Internet finance has been growing very quickly in the last 2 or 3 years. And now hundreds of Chinese companies are bringing internet finance platform to Indonesia, because Indonesia is somehow their infrastructure is not that well developed, but people do have the custom or culture to borrow money, and with a relatively high interest rate.
So, Professor, how do you see the future trend?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. So I think probably I can think of 2 models in the future. One is continue what we're doing now. It's pretty much we look at the mature business practice here. We look at what are the apps doing really well here, what are the popular things here, and then try to make it to the overseas market. Like, for example, like social entertainment, right? This is like universal consumer interest. There's people here, Chinese consumer interest in this, and there must be, consumers overseas, they're interested in the same stuff, so we can do the business there. But I think there could be the other model in the future is like we are leverage on our current competitive advantage, and maybe we just solve the problems that local consumers face. I don't have concrete example now, but I'm thinking that in the future, maybe it's not just simply kind of copy what we're doing now here to the overseas market, but maybe we can create a product just for the local consumers there.
Develop a new one for the local market.
Yes.
That's different from the apps here in China, right?
That's right.
Completely different.
That's right.
Yeah, and what is common behind this, the development capability of the team.
The skill set,
Exactly.
the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
But if we come back to the trend, I mean, I've seen all these different waves on application in the Chinese market. Say, before you talked about this e-commerce, and then you talked about this O2O trend, and then it's sharing economy, and now everyone is talking about blockchain movement. So, where to?
Well, it's just evolving so fast.
It's like every 6 months there's a new wave coming.
Right,
kind of hard to predict,
Even for the industry like us, it's hard for us to follow it, actually.
You're saying you don't know?
Well, it's hard. We don't know. We don't know. Because you have to have teams constantly looking for new directions. Also, you have to have in-house team to try to do innovations. But it can only be done in try and error way. It's like it's hard for you right now to plan something meticulously and hope it work. You just try. You have to spread all the risks.
Yeah. That's more like from the investment angle. You try out, and it doesn't work out. Okay, cancel it. If it works out, that's great.
Yeah.
It's like more a ratio thing. 1 out of how many, and then it's a successful investment model.
It's really hard to predict the future. And as investors, we monitor the market, monitor the companies, what they did abroad, very successful, and we are going to get in touch with them. There is one reason why I'm looking for the India markets so deeply, because we already have a company there. So we know the market, we know the users, we know what business can be done there too. So we're going to enhance our investment in this market, through this company.
It's lower risks.
Of course, it's lower risks, because when you, no matter you did business there or you do investment there, you have to know the market, right? You have to know what can be done there, what cannot be done. I think that's one advantage that we have to take from this period of time.
So, Dong, you're focusing on the India market, and how about you? Are you focusing on the U.S. market?
Well, we focus on U.S. market because that's the place where user can generate a high revenue for us. But these things can be changed, right? For currently, the developing countries like India and Indonesia, their advertising dollars are mainly on the traditional media, like magazines and TVs. But things will change. With the internet economy grow, and we believe that there will be more and more advertising budgets spent on online media, and then that's our opportunities. So, but right now we don't have much, we can't do much, right? We have to wait.
What do you see as the biggest, say, potential risks in the future, this going overseas strategy?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a risk, because it's something you have to do. Because in China,
you have to do it.
You have to do it. Because in China, there's so many companies here. Again, let's go back to our beginning, right? Go back to our beginning, right? There's so many competition here. And, you know, there's Chinese market is huge, but, you know, what about the rest of the world, right? You have
even bigger.
So are you saying you're not going to bring these apps home? I mean, even if they do really well abroad?
Well, of course we will, right? If something is doing well in overseas and is something we are not, we have been not paying much attention, then it's time to bring them back. Actually, for us, we used to be a company, you know, we're known for overseas revenues, right? Our majority of our revenues came from overseas, but now the domestic revenues are kind of equal to the revenues we generated from the overseas markets. So we will bring them back. Actually, another story, right? For Musical.ly, we talked about this earlier, right? Musical.ly is an app started in the US, well, developed by a Chinese company in Shanghai, small team. They became very popular in the US, and then Toutiao kind of copied it, right? Copied it to the Chinese market and named it as Douyin, right? Which is hugely popular right now.
So you're saying this is a different model. It's developed by a Chinese company, but tested out in the overseas market. When it works out in that market, you would do the same here in China.
Right.
That's a different cycle.
Yeah, it will be a two-way street going forward.
But we're seeing more interactions like that.
Yeah, talking about risks, I think there are two main risks we are going to face if we go abroad. One is localization, because you do business in different parts of the world, so you have to know the markets, you have to know the users. We have mentioned a lot about that before. And another one is that the data privacy, because, you know, in China, the data privacy protection, no matter laws or any other habits, are not mature as developed countries like the US, like Europe, right? So, but in the global markets, we have to face that, because there are huge penalty if you don't comply with the regulations. We have to do that.
I mean, Professor, after this conversation, somehow I got this impression. It is indeed getting universal and global, you know, with these Chinese companies. And maybe there is no point for us to talk about whether it started by a Chinese company first, or whether the Chinese companies are taking this practice or that. It's like universal. It's what every company does, whether it's a Chinese company or a Western company.
Right.
You look at a new market, you do something for this market, for these, you know, all these customers. I mean, in that sense, it seems that Chinese companies now are on the same level with the rest of the world. We're developing in the same way as any companies in the world.
Yes, I totally agree. I think from consumers' perspective, when they are choosing which app to download, they won't look at like which country origin, right? They look at the apps, the features, and to look at the values. So in that sense, the Chinese consumers and the Chinese apps and the apps developers from other countries, they are competing at the same level, right? They're competing for consumers. So maybe in certain areas we have competitive advantage, and that's why we can get or acquire more consumers. But I totally agree with you. I think Chinese apps and apps from other countries are competing together.
So no matter what the trend that's happening, the Chinese companies are going overseas. Like overseas companies are coming to China too.
Right.
And maybe in the end, we don't know which app is developed by which company, whether it's a Chinese company or it's an overseas company. Right. But as a consumer, we care about our using experience.
Exactly.
That's what matters. And if it's going to make our lives easier and more convenient, we'll welcome them.
Yeah, we'll download the apps right now.
Absolutely. Okay, and with that, we come to the end of this edition. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being in the show.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you next time here on Crossover. Bye.
See you next week.